I'm Brian Warshaw.
And I'm Jay Yaz.
And this is Comics Now. Welcome to Comics Now. I'm Brian Warshaw, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Billy Batson. Billy, how's it going tonight?
Shazam! Okay, I'm back. Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but this kid said Shazam, and then I disappeared, and then all of a sudden, I don't know where I'm going with this. My name's actually Jay, guys. I don't know if you remember that, but yeah.
Yeah, he's Jay, and
I'm Jay.
bet you can't guess what we're talking about tonight. If you didn't, read the title of the podcast before you. This is not a good start, but we're going to forge ahead. So we are talking about
live radio,
live recorded, syndicated radio. We are talking about the Shazam film tonight. We've both seen it. We both enjoyed it. Before that, we're going to just go ahead and dig into a few of the things that we've been reading that we've enjoyed this week. We're kind of mixing up the format for this movie review episode. Next week is more than likely going to be a week off for us, but look for us the following week talking about Ascender from Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen and Steve Wands, the hotly anticipated follow-up to that same creative team's masterful Descender. So stay tuned to Comics Now. Good stuff ahead. So Jay, what did you like that you were reading this week?
This week I read Image Comics' Fair Lady by Brian Shermer, illustrated by Claudia Balboni and colored by Marissa Louise. This is one that I kind of just picked up because it sounded fairly interesting. It's kind of high fantasy meets like a detective, private eye yarn, and it was actually pretty good. I enjoyed it quite a bit when I posted the announcement of it. Gosh, when was this? This is several months ago. Looks like it was back in February. It looked okay. It looked kind of interesting. It has a cover that's a nice take on one of the Batman and Robin covers that Frank Quitely did with the Dick Grayson Batman standing to the side, and then Damian Wayne Robin cracking his knuckles, and in the background.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, there's the Batmobile. It has the protagonist and her partner, who is a looks like a 7-foot tall cat man, and then some pig-like creatures in the background. I didn't know what to think of it going into it. Just decided to give it a fair shake. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was a nice little kind of a one and done mystery issue, which I think is how the series is going to be formatted and structured.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's not like Constant Arcs. It's more of like a serialized approach, which is really cool and kind of welcome in this day and age in comics. It was pretty neat. There's some really fun fantasy stuff with it, like the main village that the protagonist Jenner is her name. The Feld is where she lives, and it is effectively a town that has been built out of the armor of a fallen giant, it looks like. So, there's some fun little fantasy stuff in there, and I enjoyed that quite a bit. Also, I have been reading the graphic novel from Lion Forge, which is why I brought that up right before we started recording. It's called The Underfoot. It's about a bunch of I guess they are genetically engineered or highly evolved hamsters.
Oh my goodness, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. Well, they at first I thought it was going to be something like Redwall, if you've ever read that book series, that it said just anthropomorphic animals. That's what it kind of looked like, where there are only animals in this world. But they've been kind of dropping hints along. I'm only about 2 chapters in now, into the book. They've been dropping hints that maybe the humanity actually started performing experiments on animals, and then also looked for alternative energy resources through like bioluminescent mushrooms to see if that would be like a never. I mean, it sounds a little goofy, but I mean, it's like, okay, whatever, it works.
I think it sounds. I think it sounds a little deviant.
Yeah, well, yes, but also that, but no, but then they kind of hint that maybe, humanity was wiped out, and then, these animals kind of evolved and became hyper intelligent and are kind of living in the mess that we left them. So it's pretty good too. It's I like that kind of stuff, just with talking animals. I love that. It's always hit kind of a soft spot in my heart. It's written by Ben Fisher and Emily Whitten, with artwork from Michelle Nguyen. And I'm enjoying it quite a bit. It is apparently the first in a planned trilogy of books. So see how this one ends, and if I enjoy it enough to pick up the rest when they're released.
Very nice.
How about you? What have you been reading?
So I've got 2 things as well, and Detective Comics 1001 was very high on my list this week. It was hotly anticipated, and for me, it certainly didn't disappoint. It's a pretty simple first issue to a new arc. It's not, at least not yet, as sophisticated as the last arc in Detective before the big 1000. But for me, it was the perfect first installment in a new arc. I absolutely loved the artwork from Brad Walker, Andrew Hennessy, and Nathan Fairbairn. I think the way that Pete Tomasi is writing the Arkham Knight, who is the big bad in this particular arc, I think the way he's writing him is very interesting, and I'm very, very interested to find out who this character is, and as such, I've started an article on the site, which of course you know about, Jay. But it's basically going to be a continuously updated article as new issues of Detective Comics are published, basically looking at the evidence in Detective 1000 and onward to try to determine who the Arkham Knight is before we actually find out on the story. So I'm very interested to see if we, and by we I mean you, I, and anybody who comes along for the ride with us, interested to see if we can figure out the Arkham Knight's identity in advance, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, Detective 1001 was a big hitter for me. And then also, I had kind of forgotten about it, but the other day in the mail, I received my perk for crowdfunding Doug TeNaples, Bigfoot Bill, Shadow of the Mothman. So Doug TeNaple, if you guys don't know, the creator of Earthworm Jim, which was a successful video game back in the 90s sometime. And I played the heck out of that game, I think on the Sega Genesis. And absolutely loved Earthworm Jim, but I had no idea who had created it. I didn't know anything about Doug until, Jay, you had mentioned Doug on one of our shows last year when we were talking about something or other. And so he kind of got on my radar, and I found out that he was doing a book. I contributed, and this thing is just, I mean, for starters, the story itself and the artwork is just, it's a whole ton of fun. It's kind of everything you would expect if you're familiar with any of TeNaples' work, and it's yeah. I don't want to spoil a whole bunch of it here on the show, because I know other people haven't necessarily gotten their books yet, but it's just good, clean, maybe slightly dirty if you count bowel movements. It's good, clean fun. And it's expertly laid out, and it's really good storytelling, and just a whole lot of fun. But beyond that, I have never had a better experience with with crowdfunding. And one that comes close would be Jason Brubaker's Sithra books. But this one, I didn't wait all that long when I was checking the dates after the campaign ended for the book to actually arrive, which means Doug had a lot of the work done before the campaign ended.
Very nice.
And the cover is just beautiful. It's got embossed letters on it. It's got some embossed letters. It's got some raised letters. This gold pattern around the entire thing. The back, there's an embossed silhouette of the main character, Bigfoot Bill.
It looks like it's like bound really well too.
It is, yeah.
Stapled in the center, but actually like a really solid binding.
I think it's a sewn binding.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm. Let me crack open the center here and look. Yeah, this is. It's a glue binding, I think, but
okay.
But yeah, it's still it's really nice. Really, really well done. I feel like I've got, a story that I enjoy inside, but a very special physical object on the outside as well. And it's in a 9x12 format, so the artwork is huge. It's just
nice.
It's wonderful, and so really, really happy with that. And at this point, like, whatever he crowdfunds, I'm backing it, because this was totally worth it. Really, really happy with this one. And if you guys want to know a little bit more about why I enjoyed it, you can check out the review that I just posted up on the site.
Like 10 minutes ago, as far as us recording, but, a day or two ago when this episode goes up.
Yes. Yes. Well, that's pretty much what we've been into this week. I mean, we've read a lot more, I'm sure, but those are the ones that rise to the top for us. So without further ado, I think we ought to talk about Shazam.
I think we should say the word, which you already did, and I should have piped in about 3 seconds sooner. But still.
Yes. Okay, so if you guys are listening to this episode, I'm going to assume that you have seen Shazam, and you should know that we're going to talk as if you have already seen Shazam, which means we're going to talk spoilers. We'll talk about stuff that happens in the film, even things that you wouldn't find out from a trailer or some other type of advertisement. So if you have not seen the film and you do not wish to be spoiled, go ahead and turn back now so that we don't ruin things for you. But otherwise, we hope you enjoy hearing us talk about it.
And I mean, you guys know our MO at this point, that we really only cover stuff that we like. So, I mean, we liked this movie. So if you want to, pause the episode, go see the movie, enjoy the movie, and then come back and find out why we like the movie too.
Yes. So, at a high level, Shazam is concerned with the life of one Billy Batson. He is an orphan. Was he 13 years old?
He's practically 15.
Okay.
So
he's practically 15 years old, and he's bounced from foster home to foster home. He's run away, and he's basically in search of his mom. And this, for me, was actually kind of an unexpected thread in the film. And I don't have a lot of experience reading Shazam, and so I don't have a ton of background knowledge on Billy Batson and what he's done over the years, but this immediately gave me a level of emotional investment in the film that I did not expect from seeing the marketing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Shazam or Captain Marvel, or whatever, we'll call him Shazam for posterity's sake. But it's a character that, I've always been aware of and known and liked just fine. But actual stories with him, especially starring him, have kind of been a blind spot for me. Leading up to the movie releasing, I read a couple of, standalone graphic novels just to kind of brush up on it, which also definitely helped with a lot of the aspects because of the movie, because the film is based largely off of Jeff Johns and Gary Frank's Shazam. I think they were backup stories in the New 52 Justice League.
They were, yes.
Yeah, and then maybe a one-shot number 0. He may have been the star of the Justice League number 0, and it was just a complete issue. I'm not sure. Like I said, blind spot, not a character I follow closely. But for that story, it did help fill in some of the pieces with the movie. But I also read a couple of other stories that caused some confusion. Not because they were bad by any means. It's just I read Jerry Ordway's The Power of Shazam, which I think was the introduction, the opening chapter to an ongoing series that he did in the 90s. And it effectively told the origin of, Captain Marvel at the time, but Shazam and Black Adam. And in it, Billy Batson is definitely an orphan. But he also has a sister, I believe, which is absent in the Jeff Johns and the New 52 story. I also read Jeff Smith's Shazam and the Monster Society of Evil.
Wait, is that the same? Is that the same Jeff Smith that did Bone?
I was about to say it is absolutely the same Jeff
Oh,
Smith
wow.
that did Bone. And it's kind of the same. Billy is an orphan living on the streets, but he discovers that he has a sister.
Time out. I'm a little disappointed that in Jeff Smith's story he wasn't called Boney Batson.
Oh my gosh. Man, that's a missed opportunity, and I retroactively dislike that one. But no. Yeah, so that one and the Jerry Ordway series mirrored each other a little bit closer, but there were still some big differences. But like I said, in the New 52, it still seems like he's an only child, and he's definitely an orphan. But now in the current Jeff Johns Shazam series, Billy's dad, or at least who we're led to believe is his father, has come looking for him. But in the movie, it's his mother. So there is some general confusion there with me, at least. But to come back around to your point, yes, that was an unexpected. I mean, I already expected to be kind of, maybe moved by his growth as a character and coming to accept his foster family as his family.
Certainly.
But in looking for the mother that he lost, and then, as we find out later in the film, left him, and then not being wanted by her, but then being wanted by this other family that's not related by blood, but still loves him and cares for him, that added another layer of emotional depth to it that was moving in a way that either one of those would have worked by themselves, but together they made both stories all the more impactful.
That was a nice trick that they played in the film too. When I was watching the opening scene and I see that Billy gets away from his mother, I'm kind of saying to myself, well, this is kind of a pretty big plot hole. I mean, even if she actually let him get away, wouldn't she not leave the carnival until she checked with the police or checked to see if somebody was missing a lost kid? I'm like, what are they doing? This is ridiculous. And then when you finally find out that no, she actually let him go on purpose, I felt like the film was saying gotcha, but in a way that didn't bother me. Yeah,
I mean, logically thinking, I was filling it in my own head, like, oh, he's gonna find out that she got hit by a car in the parking lot or something.
Yeah, that crossed my mind too as a possibility. Yep.
Because I was like, who is going to leave their child and just give up? I mean, if I lost my son at a fairground, or anywhere, I would not stop until I was holding him again. So something had to have happened to her, but we were also kind of thinking with the idealized memory that Billy had at the beginning before we find out what actually happened in that scene later on, where she was actually frustrated and clearly, indifferent toward everything, and playing into, okay, I can see that she, clearly does not want this child and is clearly, ambivalent toward, his well-being and safety, even though she tells him, hey, you landed on your feet, good for you. But we're kind of getting way ahead of ourselves.
We are, but another early part of the film deals with Dr. Sivana, the film's antagonist, the big villain, and it is interesting that, like Billy, he comes from a family that doesn't want him. Now, it's not identical circumstances, but his father is very, very harsh with him, and loves
his brother just sucks.
Oh, his brother sucks.
His brother was a huge wiener.
Oh yeah, he absolutely was. And so it is interesting that they do have that in common with one another. But you said we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I also think as neat as it is that they managed to create those unexpected emotional hooks. I would say even with Savannah's character, that's not why I like this movie in the end. I like this movie in the end because this movie is constant fun. Well, I mean, other than the, sad emotional bits, but this movie is so ridiculously fun. I mean, when we talked about Aquaman a couple months ago, I said that it was out of any comic book movie I had seen, it was the least ashamed of its roots. It was unashamedly a comic book film. And Shazam basically says, yeah, I'm gonna do even more. And that's not to say that I think Shazam is necessarily a better film than Aquaman, or that I would necessarily want to watch it more than Aquaman on a regular basis. Time will tell. But just that this movie, the concept of Shazam is such a silly thing, and the creators of this movie recognized that to do anything less than lean all the way into it would be a failure. And so they leaned all the way into it super hard.
And I mean, the thing is, in some ways, comic books are wish fulfillment. I mean, it's, idealized heroes and, nasty villains and, good triumphing over evil, basic, mythological storytelling tropes, just in a different format. Shazam as a character is literally wish fulfillment for kids. Because what kid doesn't wish, or even, adults don't wish that they could just, say a word or, all of a sudden gain superpowers and become, this, 6'4" muscular, incredibly handsome and incredibly powerful hero who goes out, fighting for the greater good just because, it's the right thing to do. And has fun with it because, of course, it's going to be great shooting lightning from your hands and flying around and having, debatable invisibility powers and things of that nature.
Well, and what I love, too, is a lot of times with movies, really the past, I don't know, that's probably been more than the past 5 years, probably in the past 10 years or more than that. So many movies, so many comedy movies spoil their best bits in the trailers. And the funny stuff in the trailers for this movie was very, very funny, but they did not spoil the best in the trailers. I mean, this movie this movie is other than those few brief emotional moments and a few creepy moments, this movie is a hoot from start to finish, and there is so much more in the actual film than what you would have seen in a trailer.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it never forgets that it's based off of a comic book property. It never forgets that it's supposed to be an enjoyable romp for everybody either.
Yeah. And I mean, if you are a fan of Shazam and the comic books, not only does it lean into comic book sensibility, but look at the boxes that you can check off in here for a Shazam movie, okay? We've got Dr. Sivana, Shazam's oldest foe. Or if we want to be technical, Captain Marvel's oldest foe, because he was Captain Marvel at the time, back when he was being published by Fawcett Comics, and there is a reference to Fawcett here in the movie as well. I can't remember exactly where, but
wasn't it the name of the school?
Oh, yep,
that they go to?
Yep, you're right, it was. So you've got Dr. Sivana, you've got Fawcett referenced, you've got the Shazam family, you have a brief reference to Black Adam when the wizard references somebody he chose before that basically I think he said was responsible for releasing the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah.
You've got Mr. Mind,
Which
is amazing.
Oh gosh, we will get to Mr. Mind. Oh my goodness.
I mean, you've got the Rock of Eternity. I mean, and they even call it the Rock of Eternity in the movie?
I think they do.
Yeah.
And really the only thing that it's missing is Taki Tani.
Yes.
Which every movie needs a bipedal suit-wearing talking tiger. I don't care what it is. The Godfather needed a bipedal suit-wearing talking tiger. No Country for Old Men needed a bipedal suit-wearing talking tiger.
Well,
every movie needs that.
No Country for Old Men would be awesome if you replaced Anton Chigurh with a bipedal talking tiger, and instead of using that air gun thing device that he has, if he just bit people's heads off.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Shazam.
Yes. So point being, I mean, there were hints and little references here and there, like the medallion clasps for his cape have a tiger on them on his suit. And, he wanted to win the tiger at the carnival at the beginning. He gives the tiger to a little girl at the carnival at the end of the movie. So there were, little subtle nods to Taki Tani. But other than Black Adam not making an appearance, that was my maybe biggest disappointment with the movie. But
I think
you got to save some stuff for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if they did Mr. Mind, Tawny is absolutely in the future.
I mean, the fact that they did Mr. Mind, I didn't have a lot of gripes with the movie, but I mean, anything, there were a couple of nitpicks I had, but everything was wiped away when Mr. Mind wasn't just referenced, but is actually the focal point of a mid-credit scene.
Yes.
And I know that Mr. Mind exists, and at one point he controlled Skeets, Booster Gold's, flying robot pal. Other than that, I have next to no exposure to Mr. Mind, but the fact that Mr. Mind is in a movie blows my mind.
Sinister Caterpillar. I mean, do we need to say anything else?
And side note, if anybody does or does not watch Teen Titans Go, which you should because it's, hysterical and stupid and hysterically stupid, a recent episode is called Little Elvis, I believe, and it's all about the Titans making fun of Shazam and Mr. Mind, and making fun of Mr. Mind's adorable little speaker box and the cute little glasses he wears and the fact that he has a high squeaky voice but wants to take over the world. It is absolutely hysterical. So check that out on the Cartoon Network app. It's a nice companion piece to the Shazam movie.
Very nice, very nice, very nice. So, what do you want to talk about next?
I was about to say we're just jumping all over the place here. I mean, this was just a fun movie from start to finish. So I think that the person who is clearly having the most fun in this film, without question, was Mark Strong as Dr. Savannah.
Yes, loads of fun. You could see it in his face. You could see it in his eye.
Yes, he was having so much fun that he had to reel himself in and look stern the entire time, lest he break out laughing. I saw that in a behind-the-scenes featurette that I just made up. No, Zachary Levi. That guy is finally a star with this movie, which is great because I've liked that guy for a long time. I watched Chuck for a little bit and kind of lost interest in the show just because it became kind of samey, but he was always just charming and likable and just seemed like a fun guy who just has a good time playing, any role he's in. So seeing him just let loose and be a big goofy kid as Shazam, like I said, the entire idea of Shazam is wish fulfillment. You kind of get the same thing there. Is he's living everybody's fantasy of playing a superhero and just having a good time with it.
Yeah, and I mean, in the midst of all that, he actually has it's a simple arc, but he has a character arc. He starts out, and you kind of see that arc executed across both, boy Billy and grown up Shazam, but he starts out very much self-absorbed, and that self-absorption when he's in his child form, that self-absorption is kind of expressed in his singular focus on finding his mom and looking out for himself. And when he gets the powers and gets excited by that, he's still self-absorbed. He's just thinking about how these things can be a benefit to him, and how he can kind of be this popular superhero. And when it comes to actually doing something responsible and possibly putting himself in danger, he is apprehensive at first, but he eventually rises to the occasion. And the really beautiful thing is that he doesn't have to do it by himself. By the end, he realizes that the key to defeating Sivana is to actually open himself up to depending on his foster family and not just hoarding this power for himself.
Yeah, and I mean, self-absorption is the right way to say it, but it's not in a way that we would normally think of. He's not, arrogant or, cocky or, necessarily full of himself. He's guarded. He doesn't want to let anybody in because he's already been hurt, and he doesn't want somebody else to hurt him. So he just closes himself off and just focuses on what he wants because he feels like it's what he needs. So it's not necessarily self-absorption in a insufferable way. It's in a way that, like with Sivana, you kind of feel bad for the guy just because his family life is so bad. I mean, it's the same thing with Billy. They have kind of a parallel there where you understand where they're both coming from. They just both go about it in different ways, and therefore they get different, I would say, maybe not rewards, but, well, okay, the idea to, see magic and be able to sick monsters on people, I guess, could be a reward for some people. But the way that they go about their mission and their drive and their desires gets them similar, gets them similar powers and a similar outcome in the end, but it's in a very different way, because, Sivana decides to take out his anger on the people who have hurt him, and Billy decides to embrace the people who don't want to hurt him.
Yeah, and Sivana's dependence on his others, the seven deadly sins, that dependence is his weakness, because once the eye has been completely vacated by the seven deadly sins, he's powerless, or at least, no more powerful than a normal human being. Whereas when Billy distributes his power to his family, it makes him stronger ultimately.
Yeah, exactly. And which, again, that's a really interesting parallel in the arcs, because I wasn't going into this movie thinking that I was going to feel similar sympathy for both the hero and the villain for the same reasons. And to your point, I'm glad that they effectively, Billy learned the lesson that Sivana didn't, in that, he needs to, spread the love and spread, the power that he has. And that, I'm kind of rambling now. Sorry, I'm a little bit tired.
That's okay.
Billy, that's the point. Even, the wizard, without outright saying it, but strongly hinting at it, because, it's Jaimon Hansu, and everything he says is strongly hinting at something, no matter what role he's in. It's pretty much right there that what caused the the fall of the Rock, and then all of the other the Wizarding Council, or whatever that you want to call it, was a lack of unity. So the fact that Billy learns that lesson from his own circumstances adds some weight to a moment that ultimately is just one of the perfect examples of, or one of the best examples of, just perfect comic book joy in the film, when his family gets the powers along with him.
Absolutely. So what was your favorite scene in the movie?
Oh man, that's a good question. Do you have one off the top of your head? Because I think I have to think about it.
Not the final battle.
No, no.
Both because I don't think that the visual of plainclothes Savannah versus Shazam is very interesting in a physical matchup, but also because, like you said to me after you saw it a few weeks ago, I think the final battle feels a little bit long. It just kind of carries on.
Yeah, like from and what's weird is I don't know what or if I would cut anything out of it,
Right.
Because it's not like, I don't know, it's not like it's slow or it drags or even that the pacing is bad. It just feels like there is, from about the time, really, I think it's about the time, the scene at the mall where the chase scene between Savannah and Shazam, from right after that, up until the final battle of the film, it just seemed like escalating situations that, I don't know, it could have flowed a little bit better, I guess, because at first it's like Savannah's the threat, and then Savannah with the staff is the threat, and then Savannah with the 7 deadly sins is the threat, and then all of the 7 deadly sins are a threat by themselves, and they're split up amongst the Shazamly, as people have been calling it. And then Billy, faces Savannah as a threat on his own. It just seemed like, if you're thinking of like, maybe a 3-act story structure, let's say that whole final conflict is just one long story. It felt like there were about 6 first acts, and then 2 second acts, and then 2 more third acts. So it just felt like they were constantly building on top of the conflict that was before, and then just reintroducing new elements. So it did seem almost overwhelming after a while, but it was still fine. And like I said, I don't know what I would cut out. It's just something about it didn't flow as well as it could have with me.
Sure, agreed. And I think I might need to see the film again before I pick a definitive favorite scene, but I remember really enjoying the one where he goes to try to stop the guy from mugging the woman, but she's already maced the guy. And
right, yeah.
she ends up getting afraid and just gives them money so that that she can go away. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe we haven't mentioned it, but I mean, really, I think my favorite character in the whole movie was definitely Freddy. Just because he was, the idea of Shazam is what everybody would want to happen to themselves, just be able to, become powerful and get these powers and everything. But Freddy is how we would all act if there actually were superheroes.
Yes.
In real life. And I mean, what was the kid's name? Was that Jack Dylan Grazer?
Yes.
Is that who? Yeah, because Asher Angel played Billy.
Correct.
And I mean, he and Asher Angel, they played off of each other really well, and he and Zachary Levi played off of each other really well too.
Yes.
To the point that he was effectively the co-lead of the movie. I mean, there was hardly anything that he wasn't involved in that I didn't love. I think my favorite gag in the movie, it was kind of inappropriate, but and I may have just been imagining it, kind of seeing things out of the corner of my eye, because I only caught it on like the tail end. But once everybody gets their powers, and Freddy, Pedro, Eugene, Darla, and Mary become empowered as well, you see them kind of standing there, making superhero poses, and off to the far right is Freddy floating in the air, flipping the bird with both fingers. And it was just, if that's actually what happened in that moment, that is just perfect based on what we've seen of Freddy's character up to that point. But no, I mean there's so much good stuff in there that.
How about Eugene doing the Hadouken?
Yes, that was great. And I mean, Darla just being, adorable.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
love
as a
Darla.
little girl,
But they did a
about
good
being
job, even with the
being a good little sister.
yeah. Well,
Things like that.
even the grown up Darla managed to pull off the cuteness too.
And she had the one funny thing to do with Santa, which that was one joke that I guess I didn't get, or I didn't think was as funny as the filmmakers did. Just Santa being really crass and kind of a coward and everything. I mean, the first time it was kind of funny, but then they just kept going and going and going, and I don't know, it didn't work for me. But like, I think when she saved Santa or something, she makes a comment about it, and it was really fun. But I mean, they might seem obvious, but the convenience store, like that robbery scene, that was a lot of fun. They don't have, some great gags of that are in the trailers, but those aren't the only great gags in that scene. And in the context of the movie, how Freddie and Billy had been, acting up to that point made that, work even better in the film. But I also just loved, the superpower montage, just where they, try to figure it out, like the the teleportation test, which was actually a secret fire immunity test. So I mean, those were a lot of fun. And then one of my favorite interactions in the movie was when they're at school and they're trying to skip, so Billy steals a coat, and then they get stopped by a hall monitor, and Billy keeps walking, and then Shazams and becomes Shazam and puts the coat on, and then comes around and talks to the security guard, and he's all like, "Oh, is this officer?" Yeah, I can remember his name, but he was like, so and so, the one that you and Billy always speak highly of, and Freddie's like, "No, this one sucks." And it was just some just fun little jokey gags like that were just really fun. So really, my favorite scene in the movie was Freddie Freeman. That was my favorite scene.
Freddie was really cool. So I mean, I think it's a great movie, but I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about beyond what we have. What would you hope for in a sequel? I mean, there's the obvious stuff like that Mr. Mind seems to be an automatically involved component after that mid-credits scene, and we know Black Adam is obviously the next most logical big bad. But what sort of things would you hope to see?
I mean, those Taki Tani, need to bring that in. I definitely hope that they can kind of make up their mind about if it's connected to other DC movies, because I'm kind of torn on the final scene of the film. I think as a joke, it landed about as well as it could, because really the focus of that wasn't supposed to be, oh, Superman's here. The focus was supposed to be Freddy's reaction to it.
Yep.
But at the same time, it did feel a little cheap. It did feel a little, not as bad, but kind of like in Spider-Man Homecoming with the "my friends call me MJ."
Yep.
It was kind of, wanting to have their cake and eat it too kind of moment. It did feel a little like that, but really, ultimately, I just want more scenes with the family, with them going on adventures together and being heroes together, because the actors that they got playing the kids were great, and then the actors that they got to play them as superheroes, were great. And it was just a lot of fun. I hope it doesn't get kind of a sequelitis kind of problem with getting either too many villains in it, or they couldn't come up with a good idea for a story, so they effectively tell the same story in the second movie over again. And again, I mean, I'm not super familiar with Shazam and all that lore, so I don't know what I would want to say. The Monster Society of Evil would be cool. Just see a bunch of bad guys come together to fight Shazam, because that was the whole conceit. There was villains that were in previously published issues and had already been defeated, being gathered together by Mr. Mind so they could all take on Shazam at one time. So that would be kind of fun, just to get, not 2 or 3 villains like a Spider-Man 3 situation, but if you get, 7 bad guys in it and just go all out with it, it's either there's too much and then there's too much, where it would be, almost fun with how much they try to do it. Because the problem with a lot of the movies that try to have, multiple villains, is they try to give each villain their own story in the movie. And not every movie needs that. So if you have, 7 bad guys on a team, you just kind of need to know who they are and what they want, and ultimately what they want is to fight the good guys.
Yeah.
So
you can give them a group, you can give them a group identity without having to worry about, completely rounding out every character.
Yeah, and I mean, I look at, Into the Spider-Verse, how that treated everybody's origin. I'm not saying that they should go like that pithy and, kind of irreverent with it, but I mean, you can tell a concise origin story in just a few minutes and, catch everybody up on everyone, and then just get to know the characters as the movie goes along. So, take that template and then just twist it to where it would work in a Shazam movie. And, there you go.
Yeah. I think that could be interesting. For me, I think it would be neat. I think it's probably too soon in the sequel, but in the first sequel anyway, if it gets more than one sequel. But I think it would be a good gateway to introduce some other DC magical heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily somebody like Zatanna, because she isn't in the same circles as Shazam, but it could be interesting to see, maybe Dr. Fate or somebody like that. I mean, he's not necessarily in Billy's circles either, but Dr. Fate's sphere is a lot more global than Zatanna's. So
you know what? Yeah. I'd be fine seeing both of them in it. And I mean, the Black Adam movie is rumored to have, I've read it before in Holy Batcast. They talked about it the other day. Hawkman is supposed to be in it.
Oh my goodness.
Which, I was kind of like, do we need a a Black Adam movie? I mean, The Rock has proven has the charisma to carry a movie and everything. So it's not so much that, but does Black Adam really need his own movie? But if you're going to bring in Hawkman, then yes, Black Adam needs his own movie. But yeah, I mean, even though they're not characters that are necessarily tied to one another, that's still an interesting pairing. So definitely would love to see them open the door, like you said, to other magic characters like that.
Well, I think having Hawkman in a Black Adam movie, if you're thinking about Hawkman as originating as Prince Khufu, even though that was probably Egyptian. And Kahndaq is different than Egypt. There's obviously a lot of aesthetic similarity between the two, and you could potentially do some common origin in there.
And with take a page from Robert Venditti and Brian Hitch's run on Aquaman right now, where it's effectively Indiana Jones with wings and a mace.
Well, there you go.
Seeing Hawkman on a globe-trotting adventure, looking up archaeological mysteries. Definitely something that could play into a Black Adam movie. But yeah, I agree. Definitely bring in some different characters. Dr. Fate would be really cool. Zatanna, bring her in. I'm trying to think of maybe any others that are maybe a little off the beaten path that, you know what? I'm not saying that they should make it a backdoor pilot movie for, a Justice League Dark or Shadow Pact or anything, but, bring in, like Ragman and even Detective Chimp and, have these different magical characters in there interacting with Shazam, and then they could see, what the audience reaction is to it, to see if, a Justice League Dark movie like they've been rumoring for so long would be viable.
And they've already created a film universe in this first Shazam movie where Detective Chimp would be completely unsurprising.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's one thing that I was thinking of. In John's current run on Shazam, they go to the 7 magic lands. Start exploring those too. That would be. They could even use those in the sequel to maybe introduce some of these other characters. Maybe rewrite it a little bit to where other magical heroes have been, trapped in some of the fun land, and then Detective Chimp could be in the land that Taki Tani comes from, which I think is called Beastland or something like that.
Beastland.
So effectively, that they could definitely tweak the purpose of those different worlds that are part of the Rock of Eternity and the magical realms to bring in some other characters that way too.
Yeah, that would be absolutely awesome, and I really can't wait to see what they do, and I can't wait for this to come out on home release so I can see it again. Normally I would see something like this multiple times in the theater, but with Avengers Endgame coming up here at the end of the month, I need to save some petty cash, so
yes.
didn't have the opportunity this time. But I think that's probably going to do it for us on Shazam. We clearly both like the movie a lot. If you guys like the movie, please let us know. Send us an email. Jay's going to tell you how to do that right now.
Yeah, so you can always find us, pretty much daily on our website, www.comics-now.com. That's where the podcast is hosted. That's where daily press releases go up, reviews like Brian's Bigfoot Bill review. That goes up. We write other, kind of editorial pieces as well, like the Arkham Knight, the Who is the Arkham Knight post, stuff like that. Always throwing up stuff as we're effectively struck with inspiration. So we love putting stuff up there. We're on Patreon, so if you want to support the show, definitely head over to patreon.com/comicsnow and then throw a couple bucks our way and get some fun stuff in return. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ComicsNowCast. Like us and share us on Facebook. Just search for Comics Now and like us there. And you can recommend us. So leave us a 5-star rating and a recommendation and a nice little review there. We'll read it on the show. Find us on YouTube. Search for Comics Now. We're the not Belgian guys. Search for us there and then subscribe to our channel there. I don't know how many subscribers we have, but I believe once you get to 100, you can actually have a custom name for the channel. And I don't think we're not quite there yet.
We've got 70 right now.
Oh man, so 30 more subscribers on YouTube, and we can be youtube.com/comicsnowcast probably. So 30 of you go out there and subscribe to us. Write us an email, like Brian said, at comicsnowcast@gmail.com. Just send us any recommendations for books, any thoughts that you have about comics in general, any topics you want us to discover, or if you just want to say hey, we'd definitely love to hear from you. You can follow me personally on Twitter at JAYAWS. Rate and review us on iTunes. Give us a nice 5-star rating and a written review there, and we'll read that on the show. Give us a thumbs up on Stitcher and share us on any other podcasting platform of your choice, as well as Spotify, which we are on, and I forgot to mention it, but the podcast is on YouTube as well. We're slowly getting episodes on there too. So that's how you prefer to listen to podcasts, then we got you covered. As always, I am Jay, joined by Brian, and this is Comics Now.